I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. He's the author of the fantasy novel Dreaming, no other than Mr. Matthew Anthony Basile.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you for having me back. Great to be back. Like I said in the intro, it's a little bit of a rocky 12 months, last 12 months. Got through with some, got through with some good company and some funny YouTube videos, but I'm back here and glad to be back.
Yes, Mr. Matthew, and can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Matthew Anthony Basile is my author name, pen name that I go by. My real name too. But yeah, so that's the name you would search though to find my book. You have to, because of the algorithms and everything like that, you got to put in my full name, Matthew Anthony Basile, and Basil spelled like the spice with an E on the end. And I so far have my novel Dreaming out there, which is was put out by Free Minds Publications. I believe it is only available on Kindle on Amazon. I don't think it's available in hard copy on Amazon anymore. So if you have a KDP account, though, it's no cost to check it out on there. And then it is also if you're an old schooler like me and you like a physical book in your hand, you can get paperback through Barnes and Noble's website of my book Dreaming. You can also get it an electronic version through Barnes and Noble as well. If you have a different e-reader than other than KTP, so that's where you can find my most recent novel, my debut novel, I guess you could call it.
Congratulations for your debut novel, Mr.
Thank you,
Matthew.
thank you.
So,
Yeah, it's been out there for about a year, so
yes,
yeah.
what books or authors are you currently reading or recommend?
Well, like I said, it was a little bit of and I don't want to, go really into it in the show, but it was a rocky 12 months. My current situation does not leave too much time for reading, unfortunately. That's why like I said, I had to resort to like Matt Pat and the Theorist Tribe and Ryan George's pitch meetings and victimsandvillains.net and the Welty family over across the pond. But I because it was kind of like I unfortunately don't have a situation where I can really kind of sit down and get into a book. But I am looking to once I do, which hopefully will be soon. I am looking to get into this indie book that just recently came out called Heritage of Blood and Magic by I think, and I'm sorry, I'm probably gonna butcher her name, Mirna Chandra Kumar, I think is how you say that. And
Mm.
then I also it's not out yet, but I actually wanted to also check out another book which was called The Recruiter, and that's Greg Poldowski. So those are kind of the two books that are on my list. For as soon as I can start reading again. I think the last book I probably read that was fiction was probably actually yeah, God, it might have been Where the Crawdads
The
Sing,
Chain.
or yeah, or it might have been I'm so sorry, I'm gonna probably forget. I think it's Wolf Healer is what's the name of it.
Yes.
I would like to. I read the first installment of that. I would also like to read because I think that author has written, I think, like three or four in that series. So I would like to get more into that series and keep going with that one. It's a YA, but I'm a sucker for anything with wolves, and I thought she did a good job portraying wolves. Sometimes I think they're vilified unfairly, but I thought she did a fair job with wolf betrayal. Portrayal, I should say, not betrayal. She didn't betray them. She portrayed them very well. And yeah, and Yeah, I honestly, that's probably kind of what I would probably dive into if somebody gave me a gift certificate, and like I said, I could have the time. I would probably start with like those, like three or four, and see. I also, again, it's an older one, a classic, but I think I've talked on the show here. I'm a fan of Dune, and I read Dune and Dune Messiah, which I personally feel is the same story. I feel it's just he's kind of split up between two books, but I felt that was the same story. But I would like to again also try continuing that with Children of Dune. I think is the next one. So that would probably be my short list of books if someone like say gave me a gift certificate and I had the time and capability to really kind of focus and sit down on a book right now.
Yes, indeed. We talk about all the books here, Mr. Matthew, and my favorite is the Crawdad Sing episodes.
Yeah. That was a really good book. It was a little out of what I would usually read, but I was very glad I read it. It was it's probably my top 10, honestly. Of books. So
Yes, and I did interview the author of the YA Wolf. What's the title again?
Wolf
The
Healer, I think Wolf Healer.
Wolf Healer. Yeah, Miss Ra. Blue. Blueberry, not blueberry. I forgot the
Huckleberry.
Huckleberry. Yeah, Huckleberry Raw. I interviewed it two
That's right. Yeah.
times.
Yes. There you go. Thank you. I was having trouble thinking of their name, but yes, thank you.
Me too. Thank you so much. so,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, Mr. Matthew, what inspired you to become an author?
Oh, well, I always had stories in my head, and I still do to this day. I mean, they never really went away. They probably became uh, more demanding, if anything, as I grew older. And I just, I love stories in general too. Whether it's books, movies, um, anything, comic books, anything that's tells a story. I think, stories help us understand ourselves. I mean, when you go back in history to the earliest days of mythology, the mythologies of the ancient civilizations, they were used to teach lessons. They were used to help kind of understand and express values that the society had. They were used to express cultural fears and concerns, and I think that's still true to this day. And I think stories can really have a great impact, especially when we have kind of a common cultural around them. It can help bring us together, help us start conversations that are hopefully constructive. I know a lot of, unfortunately, conversations about pop culture these days can sometimes get toxic, but I think at its best, it can help bring people together, and it can help spur new insights. And I just like I said, I love stories. I think they're a valuable thing, and I love telling them. And just you know like getting them out there. So that's kind of like I said, they were always in my head, and so I just decided, hey, let's try to get them out there. I've kind of jumped around a little bit in the genres, but the indie book market is thriving, so that's kind of where I'm putting my focus now, at least until like an artist wants to collaborate with me, and then maybe I'll go back to try a comic book or something like that. But I was not blessed with the ability to draw very well, so so that's kind of why I'm at the indie book market.
So, Mr. Matthew, can you tell us about your writing process?
Yeah, it varies a little bit. With I used to just be kind of what they would call like I guess more of a pantser, what they call pantser. So I usually always had an ending. That was usually kind of usually when I came up with stories and they came formulated in my head, I usually had like a beginning or like a concept of the world and the main character, and and kind of the start of the quest or whatever, the start of the story, and then I would have the ending, and then it would kind of be like, all right, well, let's figure out how we kind of just kind of wing it and just kind of be like, all right, we're just gonna go start from the starting point, and I'm just gonna know that's where I'm heading, and I'll just figure that out. So I mean, I guess that's maybe pantsy, maybe not, because I kind of knew the ending, and I kind of always stuck to the ending. I didn't diverge from the ending usually. Now, with Dreaming, because it was like my debut novel, it was the first time I kind of went that long in the literary medium, at least. I wanted to make sure I could go that kind of length and the distance. So, and it's Dreaming's a very complex world. There's a lot of because it's a space kind of opera saga, I guess. I don't want to downgrade it, but I know space opera can sometimes be degrading, but it's like a space saga, kind of, like a little bit of Dune, a little bit of Star Wars, and like Mandalorian, a little bit of maybe some other things like Lex, if anyone's a fan of Lex, or like Farscape, those kind of those old sci-fi shows from the 90s, if you're like me. It's kind of has a little bit of that in there. So there's different factions and political intrigue a little bit, and there's different crews and characters running around with different agendas. So I wrote an outline first, and I kind of did a graph of all the different planets and all the different worlds, and I wrote an outline. I wrote a dictionary of different terms and slang, and wrote a little brief history and everything like that. And then after I had the outline down, I felt like, okay, I think this is enough story to really do a full novel. I went through it and I kind of followed the outline. I was like, all right, I did this section, did that section, and it followed pretty closely to the outline. So that was much more of a plotter, I guess, what you would call. So I was very set in stone. Now, the work in progress I have right now was kind of a little bit of a hybrid, so to speak, because that one I kind of it went with the because I kind of had this idea that had been fermenting in my brain for a while, and then I kind of finally found like the key to kind of, I think, really tell the story appropriately. And so I started writing the same approach that I did kind of with Dreaming. It's not as complex of a world, so I just kind of stuck with the outline. But that was kind of almost like closer to pantsing, because as I was doing the outline, like I kind of had an ending in mind of what I was going to do. And I started writing it, and then new things were kind of coming in as I was doing the outline, and and the outline was growing larger. So like each kind of bullet point that I was doing for the outline, I would kind of put more and more in, because I'd be like, oh wait, I got this new concept, or wait, okay, I'm introducing this new character, and so I need to put more in there, so I understand what this character is and how they fit in, so I can go back later on when I'm actually writing it, and make sure that there's a connection and the connective tissues there for everything. And even once I got to the outline at the ending, I was like, nah, I can't do this. I can't end it like this. I had to change the ending. And like, there's a character that's added towards the end that, like, I had no idea that they were even going to be a part of it until I got to that point in the outline. And like, so the outline ended up being like, I think like 10 pages in and of itself, 10, 12 pages, because it had so much detail. I was kind of writing so much in there. I was putting, lines of dialogue, because as I was writing the outline, it was just like coming in my head. So it was much more like it's a lot less. It was less complex than Dreaming, but the outline was much more complex and much more in depth. And then I kind of almost, when I went back to write it, was just taking stuff from the outline and just kind of expanding out the outline, and kind of adding more description and adding a little bit more dialogue, and kind of just almost expanding that. So that was kind of the closest I probably got to a, even though I was doing an outline, it kind of felt like a full on pants, because I was just kind of like, oh, okay, well, I think this could work. We'll set up the setup. And then I was like, oh, wait, but then this character has to come in. And then, oh, wait, you know what? I need to have the audience kind of identify with the main character. So how about we do this? Okay, this. So I got to put this back in here. And, it was kind of, so when I went through like the second time, which was really the first time to actually do it, it was kind of like, oh, okay, I got to make sure that makes sense, and we can draw this, and this character has to kind of hint towards the fact of what they're doing. So that was close as I came to Pansy. So to answer your question, I know I went on talking for a long time. It differs from, I think, each project a little bit. It's certainly in the past couple projects I've done, as I've grown as a writer, and kind of the stories have become more in depth. And I think I'm hoping that I become better each project I do, and so I think that's changed the process a little bit. But usually, like I said, I just kind of see what comes in my head and just kind of, go with it in that way. But like I said, dreaming was more set out before I actually started writing it. Whereas, like I said, the last work in progress was probably the closest I've come to actual full on pan saying it.
Very well said, Mr. Matthew. So, what challenges have you faced in your writing career?
Well, I'm going to be honest, and I'm sure a lot of people out there, if they're writers or artists of some sort, probably fall into this category too. It's the marketing is honestly, I think, the most difficult part for me. I don't really get writer's block too much. I always kind of have different ideas. If anything, my challenge would be just kind of um, staying focused on that project, because sometimes something else will come in my head. But usually that's not even a problem either when I'm really like in the focus of a project. If I'm in between projects, I'm taking a break and I'm, then I'll get like a bunch of different things in my, I'll get one week, I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, I'm really, that would be really cool to do. And then like next week I'll have a new idea. But once I kind of set down to like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, this is the one I'm going to work on, even then I stay focused on that project and I can, I go through the momentum of just the creative process to really kind of go all the way. So it's not really a writer's block. It's an editing. Editing's challenging. I'm probably not the best editor. I mean, obviously there's people out there more than I do, but these days with like Grammarly to help you out and everything like that, and I just kind of read through it again, and I feel like a sculptor just kind of, you know, chipping away a little bit. It kind of really put the details in the form I'm trying to do, or a painter just putting the little details and the dotting the i's and crossing the t's. So that's, even to me, the editing actually feels like part of the artistic process. Um, and obviously putting it out there is very exciting as well, but then after you put it out there, then really kind of trying to, and I think I've said this maybe in other episodes, really trying to get people interested in it and rise above. I mean, it's great on the one hand that we have so many people out there putting their creativity out there, telling stories, just really letting their voices be heard. But at the same time, it's, as an artist, I think you want to be heard, you want to be seen on some level, um, you know, and that can be very difficult when there's just like so many voices all clamoring for attention out there to really find, well, how do you make yourself stand out, how do you sell yourself, how do you really kind of try to explain what you're doing, to get somebody to really kind of believe in you and back you. And that's, I think, a difficult thing for an artist because they put all this work and everything into it, and it may not be perfect. Like I said, I mean, I'm not saying I'm the best editor, so I'm sure I benefit from editors. I had Dreaming was edited for me, which I think enhanced it a lot. But even though I did several passes on it, but you know I think having you put in all that work and writing, as an artist, you want to put that story out there into the world, and to just kind of have everybody just kind of be like, oh yeah, okay, and and it just kind of sit out there. um if it can be sometimes deflating, and I think that's something that's I at least struggle with, because then you kind of have to kind of get over that hump and really, and it's very hard, and it's something that I'm really, even just now, really starting to be comfortable with just putting it out there and saying, you know what, it's out there. I did it for the love of just telling the story, and has to be enough. Even if nobody reads it, or if it just one person reads it and is impacted by it, then I did my job, and that's enough. I don't need to be the next Twilight or Harry Potter, or even get a, I mean, that's unrealistic these days, I think. But although it would be nice, I would argue with it. But like, even getting a following of like 1,000 people, is difficult these days to really get. I mean, I think it's out there, it's possible for any artist out there, but it is an uphill battle, and I think to keep that grit, to know, okay, well, why am I doing this? Am I doing this for the fame, or am I doing this for the writing. And sometimes those things can get merged together because you do put your effort into something, and you do want to, you are, I think every artist is still, at least to some degree, that child who comes, home from school with this painting that they did, and they want their, their family to, ooh and ah over it and hang it up on the fridge. And, and that doesn't happen. I think that can sometimes, wound the inner child in you. And as an artist, at least, I had and many many years ago, it was like shortly after I graduated college, I was working at a job, and my coworker was an actor, and he said to me once, and it always stuck with me, and I don't think I even understood the full wisdom of what he was trying to get across to me. But he actually said two things that really impacted me, and again, I don't think I got the wisdom of it. He said one, and they were two separate conversations. He said one, he said every artist is inherently selfish on some level, because every artist wants, you know, to be seen, to be heard. They want people, many people, to look at them and look at what they did and be like, oh, wow, this is really good at what they did. That's a selfish thing that on some level. And I think that is, just part of being an artist to some level, but you have to kind of keep that in check and not let it overtake the process, which is, like I said, something that I'm just now really kind of wrestling with, and feeling like I'm coming out on top with, and to be honest. And then the other thing he said to me, he actually made a reference. It was I'm going to date myself now, but it was after the Dark Knight came out, and with the movie, the Batman movie with Heath Ledger as the Joker, and the late Heath Ledger. And I asked him, because I knew he was going to see it. And so I asked him at work the next day. I was like, oh, how did you like The Dark Knight? And he's like, it infuriated me. He's like, because I will never commit myself to something as much as Heath Ledger committed himself to that role. And, again, I think that speaks to an artist wants to commit themselves to something, and wants to pour themselves into it. And some artists pour themselves more into it than others, and maybe it gets to an unhealthy level. But there is something of you, I think, in everything you try to do as an artist or a writer. Writing it, I think, is a form of art. And so when you put that part of you into that, and it kind of is unseen, I think that like I said, it's a tough hill to sometimes get up over. So that's, I think, the biggest struggle for me, at least, and I think it's shared by a lot of people out there.
Definitely, and well said, Mr. Matthew. So, what authors or books have influenced your writing?
Well, again, I think we talked about this. I'm an old school writer, because I probably got more into storytelling through through like TV and movies. I read when I was younger too. I read, like, movies. When I was real young, like, I loved mystery. There's like mystery books. Like, again, I'm gonna date myself, but I don't know if anyone even heard, if they're even still out there. But like Cam Jansen, Encyclopedia Brown, Nate the Great. I used to devour that stuff when I was a young kid, and I still kept reading, all the way through. And then, like, I started, I got it really into, I guess, in like late high school, college, I got really into Mario Puzo. I've read all of his books that he read. Um, and, I think some of them are better than others, but I really think he had a real talent for really having complex characters that you really couldn't root for completely, and yet couldn't condemn either. They were very great characters, and I love that aspect with his books. I've read some science fiction. When I was younger, I read a lot of the classics, like H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. I think my dad, when we were young, used to actually read us like some of his favorite books, like The Hobbit and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I've read Ernest Hemingway. I think I've read about 4 or 5 Ernest Hemingway books. Um, I've, of course, like I said, read the first 2 Dunes, with Dune and Dune Messiah. I've read Stranger in a Strange Land. And, all in these books. I like books that make you think, I guess, is the theme that that there. I don't, especially with books, a TV and like movies. I still like TV and movies that make you think. Sometimes I'm okay. And I think any story has some message on some level. even kind of your like teenage R-rated comedy kind of thing, whatever they put out. Like I mean, something even like Mean Girls, has a message to it. So I think every story has a message to it, and I try to be aware of it when I do it. But I mean, I do understand that some movies and TVs or shows or and books probably too might be more just kind of pure escapism, just kind of a little bit funner and lighter. And I do like TV and movies like that, but books, I tend to gravitate more towards books that make me think. I do a lot of movies and TV that make me think too, but if I'm going to, I don't know, I guess because maybe it takes me longer to get through a book or whatever, I just tend to gravitate more towards books exclusively that make me think and that can really kind of speak to me. Not that I haven't occasionally read a lighter book, but yeah, that's kind of what I do. And I've read a lot of comic books too. I don't know if, like I said, for the sake of the show, if they are classified as books or not. But I was a huge fan of Spider-Man. I probably started reading Spider-Man when I was about 11 years old, and I still occasionally read Spider-Man. I think I stopped reading the continuity when I turned about 30, just because I didn't like where they were going with the character. But I've read like graphic novels. I'm trying to think of some. I mean, like Watchmen, I've read, and I've read Marvels, and I've read The Dark Knight Returns, and so I'm a fan of comic books too. Again, I tend to look them more and lump them in more with the TV and movies, and the fact that sometimes I'll do like lighter stuff. I'll read a Squirrel Girl, occasionally, or Deadpool and Spider-Man team up. But but also, really like something like the Trial of Magneto. That's really like was a recent one I read. That really I had to read. Like I was fortunately in a situation where I had like a weekend where basically I could like just read, I ended up reading that like 3 times I think that weekend, because it took me like 2 or 3 times to really get everything that was going on in that one. So I really liked that one. I thought that was very complex and well written. But like I said, any stories again kind of influence me. But like I said, the books. Mario Puzo is a big author that I've read a lot. I've read a lot of Ernest Hemingway. I really like Dune. Dune probably influenced Dreaming to some degree. Although I did wait to read Dune until after I finished the first draft of Dreaming, because I didn't want it to influence it too much. But I did, I did read it after I finished the first draft, and I did know about the book, and I did a lot of, I knew the concept and everything before I wrote the first draft. So there was some influence there because, I really liked where, the concept and everything like that, and how he was doing a lot of the political maneuvering and all that. So I tried to include a little bit of that in my book. And actually, I think we both have a very minor character that's mentioned on one page. Oddly enough, I think Tarako is the name. That is, like I said, very minor character in my book. I think has like one mention on one page in Dune, but for some reason I don't know where the name seeped into our subconscious, both of us, because it's in there, and it was like said, it was put in there before I read Dune, so I don't know if I where it came from or whatnot. But I remember reading Dune, and I was like, wait, that's a character I have. Like it's like that's so weird. And like I said, it's a minor character in both, and very different. I mean, it was no ripoff or anything like that, but it was a little, I guess, accidental Easter egg. But yeah, so that's kind of, I'm influenced by all stories. I just like, again, storytelling, and I like reading different writers, but I really am gravitated to books that like and stories in general, comic books, movies, TV, that have something to say and give you a little bit of thinking. Neil Gaiman's another one. He writes books and comic books, so like I haven't read. He's another one kind of like Dune. I haven't read a lot of his stuff because I so like what he does. I don't want to like accidentally like kind of rip it off a little, or anything like that. But he's another one. I do want to, over the course, read more and more, as I get into my own writing groove, because I'm a big fan of his as well. I think he's got a great imagination, and I think he does a great job of pulling in fantasy elements, but giving them weight to them as well. So, and twisting them in interesting ways. So.
Well done, Mr. Matthew. But before we go, and I want to shout out to the people listening in. Malaysia truly Asia, because in Kuala Lumpur I get 45% audience share, Selangor at 29%, Perak at 6, Sarawak, Penang, Johor, and Sabah. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast, because this podcast is created to empower writers all over the world, like Mr. Matthew Anthony Basile.
Thank
So,
you.
Mr. Matthew, can you please tell us about your dreaming?
Yeah, so like I said, Dreaming is my debut novel. It is available on KDP, and it is also available in both paperback and ebook format on Barnes and Noble's website. You would, yeah, I'm going to be honest. I am not Neil Gaiman. I wish I was, or Stephen King. I've never read any of his books, but he seems to be doing all right.
Yes.
But so you're going to probably to find it, unfortunately, if you type in like Dreaming or Mathew even Basile, because Mathew Basile is a very common name, you're probably not going to be able to find it. So if you type in my full name, Mathew, and then my middle name, Anthony, and then my last name, Basile. So Mathew Anthony Basile. Basile, like the spice with an E on the end. You should be able to find it. It's called Dreaming. It is a space kind of saga book. So if you kind of are a fan of like Star Wars and like especially the Mandalorian, and if you're kind of a little bit open-minded to things, and like stuff like Dune, or again, Lex, if you're familiar with that kind of, or Farscape, those kind of series. It's definitely, I think, a book that you would like. It was kind of, I'm a fan of those things, and so it's kind of written as the honoring those things, I guess. It's got a, it's basically just the gist. It's about a kind of a mercenary outcast who is sent on a trail of a missing person, and when they meet, she's a fractured woman, and her mind's kind of fractured, and they have kind of a unique connection, and it kind of ends up opening doors amidst a lot of political turmoil. It ends up opening doors that that kind of cause everything to unravel in the larger society that they live in. They live in like a star system society. So and in that star system, things start unraveling very quickly when these two meet, and amidst the political turmoil. And so I would love to hear feedback. Of course, I'm open to any feedback. If anyone wants to reach out to me, I am on Twitter at Mathew Anthony Basile. And, it's published by Free Minds Publications. So if you go to their website, if you don't feel like searching it or you're having trouble searching it, you can look them up on Twitter, or, go to their website, which is, freemindspublication.com. And, sorry. And you can find on there, and I think they have links where you can purchase it on their website. Free Minds Publications and I have parted ways amicably. I just they did a great job with Dreaming. I thought it came out really good. I was really happy with it. Like I said, they did the editing and the cover. I thought all that came out good, really good with it. We just this new work in progress. I might shop around some agents first, so that's why I kind of like I said, we parted ways amicably. But they you can still go to their website, I believe, and still find my book and check out other books that they put out. And like I said, or you could just search it, as long as you use my full name on Barnes and Noble or Amazon. Because I've tried looking it for myself, and that's why the only way I could find it was using my full name. So that's why I'm advising you to do the same if you want to check it out.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Matthew Anthony Basile, because if you support him, more fantasy books coming. So, Mr. Matthew, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it and had a great time being here again.